All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly on a Friday, and with us is Johnny Dells from Johnny Dells Football Academy on YouTube. This guy's got a YouTube channel. It's got 26,000 subs, and it's growing. He breaks down Niner film, and he's a wealth of information, and he's with us on the UMA guest line to talk all things Niners and to highlight what he's doing over there at Johnny Dells Football Academy on YouTube. Johnny, how are you?
Oh, fantastic. Well, I mean, as fantastic as we can be, kind of working through the morning of the week and the news of Nick Bosa. And, it's still pretty raw. I think it's going to take me a few weeks to get over that.
Yeah. And we'll get into maybe what the Niners ought to do on the Bosa front, but we won't start there just because it's a tough one. But tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, tell us a little bit about Johnny Dells. Tell us a little bit about Johnny Dells Football Academy. I follow you on X, and you're a good follow on X. And you've got a great YouTube channel. If you want to follow Johnny on X, it's just Johnny Dells, JONNYDELS, at Johnny Dells. And tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel and when you started it and what kind of content you put out.
Yeah, so I've been a Niner fan my whole life. I was born into it, and my mom, she grew up in the Bay Area, used to go to games at Candlestick back in the day. Actually, she really went to games at Kezar way back in the day. So that's how long it's been in the family. And so I was an 80s kid, born and raised on the Niners dynasty and watching Steve Young through the 90s and all that great time. And it's just been in the blood from there, and love my 49ers. And it was in the early 2000s. What happened was my dad got cancer, and I ended up taking care of him in a small little hut in Eastern Oregon where I had nothing but an internet connection. And right around that time, the NFL had started releasing coaches film as part of a purchase option, right? So I was very intrigued, always been very nerdy about football and wanting to know about the X's and O's and the strategy of it. And so I thought, well, I got nothing else to do. My dad was sleeping most of the time. He's going through his chemo treatments, and I was just kind of there, and I needed something to occupy the mind, and started diving into coaches film, and one thing led to another. Have been really working with that and absorbing as much football knowledge as I can for the last number of years. Still a lot to learn. I will never say I'm the definitive authority on almost anything, but I started a YouTube side of it in 2019, and then 2021 really tried to stay more consistent year over year. And I took a lot of inspiration because I can ramble a little bit if I'm doing some live breakdowns. People don't know how many takes on those X when I'm just doing a quick video breakdown. Usually that's about my 10th take on it that that I post. But I try and do very scripted, edited videos on my YouTube channel side. I try and make the game condensed down into the story of the game and the pivotal moments within 20 to 25 minutes is the goal. Highly edited, so it's streamlined, so people can get through it and hopefully learn a little bit more about football. I know, it's a growing sport, especially internationally. We have a lot of people that are interested in, unless you have really dove into all this stuff, there's a lot that can be overwhelming. And we always want to know, right, at the end of the game, the biggest things we always want to know: how did we win? Who did really well? Why did we lose? Or why were we really good in the run game? Why were we really bad in the run game? So I'm trying to answer the whys and the hows. That's really the goal.
Well, that's awesome, man. And anytime you're educating 49er fans on their team, they're going to love you for it or hate you for it, depending. And they're going to have a strong opinion, but they're going to be there for it, which is why you have 26,000 subs. Let's share the screen. This is a 45-second, or let's see, maybe a 2-minute clip that you put out. And you on X, and you said, what is it about D. Winters that has helped this defense look so much better? Check this out. So why don't we do this? We'll that's the beauty of having you on YouTube tonight, is that we can grow the screen, share the screen, and give people just a taste, just a little bit of a taste of kind of some of the breakdown that Johnny does. Here we go, a little bit on D. Winters.
D. Winters is playing at an absolutely phenomenal level right now. He has brought a difference to this defense. And what do we mean by that? Okay, so here the Cardinals are going with 4 eligibles to the short side of the field, 4 strong. They have a tight end away. So D Winters is on that side. We got Ji'Ayir Brown to the 4 strong. They're going to bring, Cardinals do a motion here, looking like they're changing the strength. So we're going to have D Winters and Ji'Ayir Brown swap roles. The Cardinals saw this earlier, so they're trying to take advantage. What they're trying to do is target D Winters. So they're going to come with a flood concept here. So they're going to run a streak down the middle. They're going to run off the outside, and then they're going to run their tight end on a deep out route and receiver out into the flat. So they're trying to create a 3-level vertical stretch. D Winters is going to be in the underneath, and they're trying to put him in a vertical stretch. They want to hit the tight end on the deep out. That's where they want to go with the ball. And so as you see, first thing D Winters does, gains depth, turns to locate. So this is a great job of gaining depth to his landmark and then turning to locate, anticipating the outbreaking route. That's where Kyler Murray wants to go. They've double teamed the streak. He's then on the deep out. Here's where he brings something special to this defense. Look at the space that they are allowing to the underneath on a good athlete. D Winters is 20 yards away. The side judge is the line of scrimmage. Watch the closing speed from D Winters to close, and it's a 2-yard gain. This is what D Winters is bringing to this defense, is that you have the ability to drop deep, take away the intermediate, and then close and suffocate the underneath. That is closing speed that is really standing out.
That is a good breakdown there. I really enjoyed that. Let's talk about D Winters for a second, because, basically, offensive football in a, very short amount of, we could talk about it for hours, but offensive football in its most simplest form is about creating space, and defensive football is about closing that space down. So you hear Robert Saleh talk about, this guy's a space creator, that guy's a space creator, when he's talking about offensive players. What D Winters is a space reducer, right? And what you just illustrated there really shows why he's so valuable to them. Fred Warner and D Winters are grading out right now as among the highest graded coverage linebackers in the sport, and they both happen to play for the 49ers. I think they were given coverage grades in the 90s, I believe, at least once or twice in the first 3 games by PFF. They're great coverage players. But this was a pivotal fork in the road for the 49ers. And guys like myself, big mouth know-it-alls, were like, hey, bring back Greenlaw, bring back Greenlaw. And I wasn't the only one saying it. Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, these other guys were like, bring back Greenlaw. But you know what? We were all saying it with our heart. We were all saying it with our heart and not our head. And the Niners said, you know what? Now, the Niners are going to claim everything, right? They're going to claim that they wanted D Winters, but in reality, they lowballed D Winters. They sent him a message that they wanted to move on because they wanted to move on. And then he read that message well and decided to move on. Then the Niners realized, man, we're going to look really bad inside of our locker room if we don't make some last-ditch effort to get him. So they got on a bird. Shanahan and Lynch did. They flew out there, and they offered him more than they initially did, and they got serious with their offer. But at that point, he was emotionally moved on to Denver. But it was the right move. And they did it this way because of a lot of reasons, because of how proud a veteran he is, because of how much they loved him as a player, because they didn't want to be perceived as kicking him out of their room to the other players. So I'm not saying it was a song and dance, but they got what they wanted out of it, which is their players respected them for making an effort, but they still were able to turn the page to the younger, faster, healthier D Winters, who they thought was growing up in their system and could do the job. Fast forward to this summer, D Winters proved it. And now Trey Greenlaw's proving that they were right, because he's on IR and he's been unable to get on the field at all this summer. So they made the right call there, Johnny. And But give me your thoughts on the combo of Warner and Winters, because what you just showed there was a ton of open real estate, a lot of green grass, and that's a lot of responsibility. And I think you saw D Winters. He felt like they were going to McBride. He had the perfect depth and body position to defend the tight end, and then he rallies up to defend the back and the flat with unbelievable speed and timing and accuracy, and solo tackle effort got him to the ground. So spectacular play there by Winters in reality. I don't know if it played that way to the TV audience.
Yeah, because we can't always see the depths that they're doing and why they're dropping to where they are. You know, I know during both Steve Wilks and Nick Sorensen, one of the biggest criticisms from fans was they're always playing this soft zone, always playing that soft zone. It's getting us killed. I didn't have, from a philosophical standpoint, having watched Robert Saleh's first trip here with the 49ers and the D'Amico Ryans, we always tried to take away the intermediate area. It was always, quote unquote, soft zone. I think sometimes we look at soft zone as like, you're just allowing a lot more space. It's more about where are you allowing that space? Who are you asking to cover that ground and into that space? And one of Steve Wilkes' problems was he was trying to ask Fred Warner to cover more horizontal space and less vertical space, which is where he's good at. That's what our linebackers have been good at. That's what D Winters is really good at. And so we saw Fred Warner kind of have a dip down under Steve Wilkes, because Steve Wilkes' system was just a little bit different. He was asking his safeties to cover more in this flats and stuff, not Will or Mike, as we saw with D Winters. Nick Sorensen came back, and it was, you're asking Devondre Campbell to do that. And that was a terrible fit. It was an absolutely terrible fit. And then there was very little inflexibility, not only in that, but then third downs were horrible for the 49ers under Sorensen. I always felt like they were behind the eight ball in all their weekly preparation. I felt like they were eating up so much time at the beginning of weeks that you could see third down, red zone, gold zone. Those areas were they were really poor defensively. So it just felt like they were late on everything, which kind of illuminates to really poor coordination from the top. What now you're seeing is a defensive coordinator who understands how to install his game plans and putting players in the right positions to succeed. But that's usually a cliche, but this is what that looks like. You're asking D Winters to do what he's really, really good at, and that is gain depth and then go attack and get vertical and attack and make the tackles. He's not being asked to do other things that under other guys you probably wouldn't look quite the same. So I love exactly what D Winters is able to do, what he brings in that, and able to retreat, take away the intermediate, which so many offenses now are trying to hit those intermediate zones. Very few offenses anymore, because of the way the defense has been going, are trying to hit those big deep shots down the field. We're seeing a reduction of deep shots, right? We're seeing a reduction of big air yard throws. And we're seeing more intermediate attacking areas. So to combat that, you need these guys who can then take away the intermediate, but also rally and suffocate the underneath. The 49ers call it the kill zone. That's what they're talking about, is that's going to kill the offense. You're going to get it. You're going to take away the intermediate, and then you have to rally and make good tackles. And that's a team effort. What I love is always actually seeing Chris Kasurek on the sidelines. You can see him on the game film. Like, if his defensive linemen are not running to the sidelines down to the ball, running, you can see him yelling at those guys, get over here, keep running. You can see it on the game film. I love watching that this is a team mentality. But what D Winters brings is an ability to run this system at a very high level, and we're seeing that so far. He has absolutely brought it, and he's been on the field. I loved Dre Greenlaw as much as anybody, but he either didn't finish or didn't appear in 41 of his first 100 games in the NFL. That's a 41% missing rate, right? That's bad. You can't pay a guy like that really top tier money. And we're seeing that now this year. Like, unfortunately, that has played out. And D Winters has made all of us forget that we were crying for them to keep Dre Greenlaw, because I think we were all thinking back to when we didn't have D Winters on the field and we had Devondre Campbell out there, how bad the defense looked. Then all of a sudden, Dre Greenlaw comes back and the defense looks so much better. And then he leaves, and then the defense is back to what it was. I think that's what many of us were kind of worried about happening to this defense, and D Winters has made us all forget about it.
Couple thoughts come up. Listen to your breakdown. I mean, one, what the hell were they doing with Devondre Campbell all of last year? I mean, what the heck was going on there? I mean, seriously, I called that out 4 or 5 weeks before that whole thing died. And I was like, this is not going well. This guy's not good. And I kept getting these BS Sorensen answers. He's a strong veteran presence. Really, Nick? Really? What he was a slow has-been linebacker who couldn't come to grips with the fact that he lost speed, and they made a terrible evaluation. Are you telling me that D Winters couldn't have played some of this caliber of ball a year ago? I find that hard to believe, but it is what it is. They lived through Devondre Campbell. It was an ugly chapter, and now Winters is getting his run. And it's a reminder watching Winters and Warner together of what Bowman and Willis looked like, because, we haven't seen the Niners with two fast, instinctive second-level defenders playing at a high level. I feel like since either just glimpses of Warner and Greenlaw, and before that, a lot of Bowman and Willis. But I love the breakdown, Johnny. I thought it was fantastic. Let's move to another one that I really enjoyed as well. This is one that you did coming out of the Saints game. I went to the Saints game in the Dome, and this is a little breakdown on Connor Colby. Now, you're teasing that you've got more breakdown on this, but I believe we can watch some of this.
It's the Saints. So let's start right here with some pass blocking.
No, wait, this is Brad, huh?
Yeah, that's Brad.
I
think
this is
Brad.
Brad.
I had something on Connor Colby in there. It was more so it was a specific play. He was able to get a reach block on Devon Godshow as a one technique. So the Godshow was outside shoulder of Brendel, and Colby had to cross his face and seal him off. And it was such a phenomenal block on Godshow. Godshow is a 9-year NFL veteran.
Great against the run.
And he's very good against the running. And Connor Colby was able to.
I found another one. I I like here. This is another one I've seen before that you had on here. Let me share this. This is a little breakdown. You see, so refreshing to see a defensive coordinator setting up advantageous matchups for the front, for the pass rush, not just dropping 7 and hoping his front 4 wins their rushes. So let's play this little. It's only about 1:44, but let's hear this breakdown. We'll talk about it.
So it has been so refreshing to see a defensive coordinator that sets up positive matchups. That is, even when you're only rushing 4, you're not just asking your guys to line up and win, and teams are able to set up double teams and chips and everything. So this is one of the most crucial third downs in the game, second to last drive for the defense. So you bring all these guys close to the line of scrimmage. You can see the center pointing out Marquis Siegel, who's hovering around. They want to make sure that this side of the line is completely aware of a fourth threat. So they're going to slide to that side. They're going to bring Alvin Kamara up to account for Fred Warner if he comes. So that way they have somebody to account for every single potential rusher. They're trying to account for everybody that might be coming on the rush. So that tells you they're going to slide away, and that Kamara will be responsible for Fred Warner if he comes. What Fred's going to do is he's going to fake a little bit and then drop out. He's trying to occupy Fred or Alvin Kamara so that you get one-on-ones with Nick Bosa and Micah Williams on the left tackle and the left guard. So you can see they back out late here. And then you're going to see Kamara has to check to make sure Fred's not going. They've slid away. We've dropped into coverage, 7 into coverage. That causes Spencer Rattler to have to hold the ball. But look at what these two guys on the same side are able to do to that side of the line, completely collapsing it, getting a sack, one of the most important moments of the game. This is what this defense now looks like.
So you're kind of illustrating the combo of Bosa and McKell together, and now obviously they're going to have to go with Bosa without or no Bosa and just McKell. So let's get to that. What do you think the adjustment's going to be? Do you think that the Niners will put Ji'Ayir Gross-Matos, move him from inside to outside? Do they try to add? I would probably look to see if I could add another speed rusher, and just see if I could go for a couple weeks. You got such good things going on inside with Gross-Matos and Mikel. I'd almost rather see if I could find a speed rusher and see if I could keep those guys in their same spots because they look so strong inside. How do you think Kasarik and Saleh, when they sit down and start hashing out their options, and they got Robert Beal, they got Travis Gibson. There's free agent options, there's practice squad options, there's trade options, and then of course there's the nuclear Trey Hendrickson, nuclear trade option, which already, Tim Kawakami, Greg Papa, and others are like, hey, what about Trey Hendrickson? What do you think? What are the options as you see it for the 49ers to replace or try to replace Nick Bosa?
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to replace an unreplaceable player.
Right.
You're going to have some sort of drop in production. The question is, what is your drop in production and how can you account for it? Nick Bosa is the kind of guy that he can create so much pressure and push the pocket and make things uncomfortable. I mean, it was in the first quarter, you could see we kept seeing Kyler overthrow throws to his left, right? Well, a lot of that was from Nick Bosa pushing the left tackle towards him, and Kyler's trying to throw over the helmet of the left tackle or trying to throw around the left tackle, and balls are sailing high. They're sailing inside. So that means you can play more aggressively to Kyler's right or down the middle. You don't have to play as aggressively on routes breaking out to his left. So that helps your coverage. Now your coverage has to be tighter on things like that because you can't push the pocket as easily with Nick Bosa. So you can't fully replace him from the rush standpoint. You might have to try and clamp down even a little bit harder on the coverage standpoint. It might change what you can call on third down. So I think what they really need to do, as far as what I see, as far as what would be a cohesive idea, base down Samo, I think is going to be the guy that comes in and plays a lot of base downs with Bosa being out. I think he's the stronger edge setter away from Michael Williams, and that's the number one thing they want to do is do not allow those edges to get expanded. They want to condense the edges in every way they can in the run game. So I think Samo is going to be your number one guy there to step up into that role. He's a little bit bigger, a little bit stouter, good edge setter. He was the one that was rotating in for Nick Bosa's spot most of the time so far this season, as far as base downs. When it comes to pass rushing, I think they're going to have to try and figure out who can create the best power rush is what I think. Because what we've seen the growth of Nick Bosa, or I guess not growth, but more, he's been shining out a little bit more this season because he's not being asked to win at 7 yards at the 7-yard depth. You have Bryce Huff that can do that. He's so fast off the edge. When they're scheming up these pass rushes, you want to have somebody win at every level. At 7 yards deep, at 5 yards deep, at 3 yards deep. That way, you're not having two guys collapsing at 7 yards. They run into each other. It gives the quarterback a place to step up into. You want to be able to win at each level. And so Michael Williams is a guy that can absolutely win at the 3 yard. CJ West is a guy that can bull rush and win at that 3 yard. Alfred Collins has shown some ability to do that. Kalia Davis obviously can do that. Ji'Ayir Gross-Matos is very much the Joker role. He can be asked to do a number of things. He can be asked to rush straight in. He can be asked to rush way around. He provides all these abilities with stunts and everything. Bryce Huff is that guy at 7 yards. Nick Bosa we've seen more just straight power rushes. He hasn't been having to try and win with a lot of speed rushes off the edge. He's able to just bull rush that left tackle and that right tackle right into the quarterback. And it's getting these guys off their spots. Nick Bosa has been able to disrupt the launch point of quarterbacks more than anybody I think that I've watched this year. So you need to have somebody who can do that. That way you can have a cohesive pass rush plan. So that's going to be a challenge of can you have somebody who can win at that, but then you can also ask, okay, we're going to ask now Bryce Huff to win at 5 and you can win at 7. If it's somebody who only has one tool in their tool bag, it will be harder. So how do they work that? How does the pass rush plan? It just puts a little bit more on their plate. Well, actually, not a little bit more, a lot more on the preparations plate of you have to be very, very intentional about every single pass rush rep and plan as a team. Things really have to be intentional now. You cannot say, well, Bosa can win at this point. everybody has to tighten up and really be on their game plan and set things up and throughout the game. And so it's a tough task.
I mean, it's very rare that you can find guys on your front seven that can consistently draw double teams. And when you have a guy like that, you keep them and they're golden. And then without a guy like that, opponents, plans as how they're going to block your line change dramatically because they're not worried about doubling Nick, and it changes the equation across the board. Would you rather see them go after, there's all kinds of options. Would you rather see them go after, a speed? I mean, Nick Bosa represents both speed and power. He's a 270 to 275 pound defensive end who's got great speed off the edge, but he also has an unbelievable ability to play the run. He's got great power, and he can play inside if he had to play inside. I mean, you're not going to use him there, but you could. You're not going to typically find a guy on the street or in a trade at this point who can replicate Nick Bosa. So would you rather replicate Nick Bosa's power? I think of a great trade partner as the Jets, right? Because I see the Jets as a bad team. Salah's there. He's got connections to these players. He drafted Will McDonald. He drafted, I believe, Michael Clemens. Michael Clemens is more like Bosa's size, but doesn't have that kind of speed or fluidity. Will McDonald is a smaller guy who has unbelievable speed and agility, but he doesn't have Bosa's, 270-pound frame to stand in on first and second down against the run. If I were the Niners, I would knock on the Jets' door and see if I could get both those guys. If I could get two for one, two defensive ends to replace one, those would be the guys I'd go for. But if you had to choose, Johnny, between, let's just say it was one or the other, and you had to have a speed element guy like a Will McDonald, who's going to almost be like a carbon copy of Bryce Huff off the other edge, or would you rather have the really strong 270-pound, excellent edge setter in the run game, but maybe doesn't have a lot of bend or a lot of pass rush juice on third downs? What would you prefer?
Honestly, I would prefer the more power guy because you have Bryce Huff there. And yeah, having two speed guys is great, but if we go back to where were the 49ers pass rushes always most lethal is when you had Nick Bosa who could push and use that incredible power. Every once in a while you'd see that speed, but they had the real speed guy on the other side. Nick Bosa's got a good speed rush, but it wasn't the D Ford and it's not the Bryce Huff. I mean, these guys are lightning fast on the other side. They're going to be able to win at that 7-yard landmark better than almost, as top 3-4 in the league, the way these guys can get to that landmark. So if it's me, I'm saying, well, I already have that. I need somebody who can then, when the quarterback tries to step up, that they have the ability to disengage and go make that stop. That's where I would look for help. And I think you can get it cheaper. I really do. I think you can get it cheaper because the most premier, I think, positions as far as expense are going to be absolutely disruptive interior rushers and crazy fast speed edge guys and then guys who can do both are then in that super tier. That's where you get that Myles Garrett and you get a Nick Bosa and you get a TJ Watt, guys who can do all of that. They're going to be in that super tier, but generally somebody who can push the pocket but isn't going to win with super speed on the outside, they're a little bit cheaper. So I think you can get it for less premium draft capital, because the question is going to be, how much draft capital do you give up to replace a guy who you're expecting to come back next year?
If you could get Trey Hendrickson, isn't he in some ways almost on an equal par to Bosa? I mean, he's had 35 sacks the last 2 years. He's already got 6 hits on the quarterback and a couple sacks this year. How do you compare Nick Bosa and Trey Hendrickson?
I mean, they're both incredible players. They're players that every defense wants on their team. I think the challenge comes in, what is the asking price for the Bengals? The Bengals are in a position where I think internally they're looking at, can we hold the fort down and still stay within striking distance when Joe Burrow comes back? I think that's where internally they are. Externally, everybody's looking at the Bengals and saying, well, Joe Burrow's gone for the next 3 months. This is a tank to get to improve the team around him sort of situation, and you're not paying Trey Hendrickson. I don't think that the Bengals will want Trey Hendrickson to walk out the door for very little draft capital. They're going to want premium picks, and that's the challenge. Okay, you're replacing a Nick Bosa for one season. How much premium draft capital are you willing to invest in that, especially when you just invested your 11th overall pick in Mykel Williams last year, who's playing edge on base downs and then an interior pass rusher. You have Bryce Huff now. You have him there. You sent away a draft pick for him last year. You have Nick Bosa, who you're expecting to be back next year. How much do you do that on this season? I don't know. I don't see, if they were to make a move for Hendrickson, I don't see it within the next 3 weeks. I think we're looking at near the trade deadline sort of a situation.
No, I think you're right. All right, let's do this. Let's share the screen. This is another video that I retweeted. I really enjoyed this one the other day. This is your breakdown of the Niners NASCAR package. It's about 90 seconds. And obviously they don't have the same package, but I think this is a good breakdown. This is Johnny's breakdown on the Niners NASCAR package in a snap against the Saints in week 2.
So this NASCAR package from the 49ers with Bosa, Yetur Gross-Matos, Mykel Williams, and Bryce Huff is going to be really fun to watch throughout the season. This is 3rd and long for the Saints. They're going to keep a guy in to chip on Bosa to help the left tackle out. They're going to slide away from that and also have a tight end on a chip and release. We're running a stunt here. They're going to bring Yetur Gross-Matos across the outside shoulder of the center. They're going to bring Mykel Williams to attack the inside shoulder of the tackle. And then this is Bryce Huff. He's going to loop around. These guys are just creating chaos in the pocket. Gross-Matos is going to come in and destroy the right or left guard. And in that, the right guard, they're so worried about Bosa over here. No concern for what's going on there. Just chaos in the pocket. It's only because Spencer Rattler was able to get out on some plays that they didn't have more sacks. These guys are going to be really fun to watch as they grow as a unit through this season, that you have some scheme and players that can help when Nick Bosa is getting these double and triple teams, be able to create production alongside that and take advantage of it.
I think it illustrates kind of what's not going to happen now that they don't have Nick. You know what I mean? You're not going to see teams just devote 2 guys to Trevis Gibson like that. So they're going to have different plans, and it's going to make things a little bit more. It's going to make things a little bit more complicated. And as you said, the Niners are going to have to be very precise with their rush and with their rush plan across the board, or they're not going to have success. There are other aspects of this besides Nick Bosa. You had another good one here on Connor Colby, and I really liked it. And let me see if I can pull this up. You had Connor Colby basically on a reach block, and it was good stuff here. Let me see if I can pull this up. Maybe... Let's see. This is it. Is this it? No, that's not it. This is it. Here it is. Now, granted, it's only 8 seconds or so, but you can talk a little bit about this one. All right, we'll share the screen and show people this reach block, and it's only an 8-second clip. But here's Colby. Here's Colby at left guard. Trent, Colby, Brendel, Pooney, McKivitz, and describe what we're going to see on this play.
So this is our classic Zorro wide zone. This is the staple of the Shanahan offense, right? Is can you get these wide zone rushes, extend the edges? That means, these guards and linemen have to take off running laterally. They want 3 steps straight down the line. Like, they don't want guys moving vertically on those steps. This is 3 steps. Watch Colby's first 3 steps. They're on this side of the white line, right? That's highlighting how much they want them moving horizontally. He's got to cross the face of his defender, seal him off from being able to pursue. And that's the block that springs this run, because Godshow is supposed to run that down the line and and keep his gap. Because if we really look, McCaffrey's running inside of Brendel, right? So that is God shows gap, is they've just moved the gaps down the line. So he is the one that is securing this big run. And this is one of the biggest runs we had in the game. And it was really close. If, you're just talking about like tenths of a second timing on these cuts and these guys being together. And that run is boom, gone. I mean, McCaffrey nearly splits that, and he's gone to the end zone if he gets through there. This 49ers run game, I know we've seen it as like it's not quite there, and we haven't seen a lot of, where they're only averaging 3.5 yards a carry. They are so close to busting some of these 50, 60-yard runs. I mean, they are so close. We're talking tenths of a second in every game. So Connor Colby brings exactly what you need for this run game, which is that quick feet movement in the run game. That is so essential. Aaron Banks, our run game dropped so much when Aaron Banks had gotten hurt and he started to gain weight. Chris Forrester talked about that Banks struggled keeping his weight down after he had gotten hurt last year, and you could see it. He was slow off of the line on all the run plays, and it was so many plays I was looking at. I'm going, if Banks was one step faster, we have a big run. So many plays, and you could see him then. He's trying to do things to make up for the fact that he wasn't moving as quickly, and that was leading to some poor technique, and then he was getting abused on some of that stuff. Securing this out of the left guard is a huge thing for this 49ers run game.
I think it's also great to get the still at the snap to show people what the Niners are up against in the run game. I mean, the Saints are a 3-4 defense with a 5-man. They're showing you a 5-man surface, and what you got here is you got 7 guys firmly in the box, and you got the guy in the top right corner who's on the edge of the box. I mean, he's literally right there. They're creeping an 8th guy and almost a 9th guy into the box. They are absolutely, they're putting that extra defender in the box and basically daring the 49ers to throw it, which is why you've seen 39 pass attempts, 41 pass attempts, because Shanahan's like, you know what? Am I going to run Christian into a brick wall? Am I going to run Christian all day and all afternoon into 8-man fronts? Or are we going to throw the ball and try to loosen him up? And that's what he's chosen to do. I mean, don't you think that the 49ers pass attempts are a lot based on they're getting this pre-snap look quite often?
Yeah, they're getting that. And a lot of teams are showing like a quarters and 2-shell pre-snap look, but the safeties are just not retreating. That's what I'm seeing is like they're planting at 12 yards in a lot of cases, and they are looking to run support. So like I've been watching
daring the Niners to drop back and throw it.
Really. And mainly be able to throw deep down the middle.
Yeah.
Because they don't respect the 49ers receivers deep down the middle. They don't, and some of that comes with they don't respect MVS on an outbreaking route. They just don't. So the outside corners are going to stay on top of him, and he's going to run that go route and clearing routes down the middle. They're going to keep a corner on top. They're not worried about him running a comeback route. They're not worried about him running a bench route, which is deep out. They're not worried about that from MVS. So safeties don't feel like they really have to help. The corner's going to stay on top of him, and they don't have to help on those deep throws because the corner doesn't ever have to even get in phase or out of phase in any position to break on anything else. He's not breaking quickly. He's just not pulling it. There's a reason that the Seahawks let him go. You see Sky Moore out there. Nobody's scared about Sky Moore is beating them on out routes and stuff. The only guy that you have to worry about is Ricky Pearsall, and before that, Juwan Jennings. But Juwan Jennings has been hurt, and Juwan Jennings, you don't have to worry about his speed down the middle of the field. So you're left in this conundrum where the only guy that can threaten both the middle of the field and route running is Ricky Pearsall. Well, are you going to run Ricky Pearsall on a bunch of clearing routes and trying to have everybody else do that? Well, if you're doing that, you're going to throw a lot to Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. George is out, and we saw Christian McCaffrey get 15 targets last game. So it's a situation where you're not able to just, target the middle of the field like you were because those safeties are planting there. You're not able to run as well because those safeties are coming up from their planting position and rallying. That also means that you're going to get less explosives because those safeties are sitting farther back. They're not committed to one side or the other. They're able to go help. And so you're getting these, we've had some of these 8-yard, 9-yard runs where it's a safety that's over there that at the last second gets him. And it's that backside safety who's not down in the box. He's at about 10 yards. And that creates difficulties. So until they can get receivers back in that can both threaten the middle of the field and win some outbreaking routes, this is going to be a struggle to get the run game going.
I was really hoping that we'd see Jordan Watkins because he really looked good this summer. He gives them a vertical threat. He's got 4.3 speed, but now he's got the calf injury. He had the high ankle sprain, and it just seems like it's going to be November before he makes any kind of an impact. Give me your quick thought on Brian Robinson. Some people have taken to social media and made the aggressive point that Robinson is ill-suited for this offense, that he's not a fit. It's taken a couple games to get him rolling. He did have the longest run of the game last week against the Cardinals. They're using him, it seems like, a lot on the toss play. Why do you think that is? And what do you think overall of Robinson's fit within this offense?
I think for me, it's a little too soon to tell on his exact fit. I can see that he's struggling with the details of the run game, which is to be expected. It's only a rare player like McCaffrey who can come in from a different team, from a different system, get into this 49ers system and be able to absorb and do everything at the detailed level that the 49ers want. Brian Robinson's feet and his steps are just a little out of time, a little bit. He's drifted. Like, for example, we had one that it was against the Saints. It was so close to being a massive explosive, and he just took about 8 inches too wide of a step on his second step. It was just the track was a little bit off. If he was on time on that and he makes the cut at the right time, which you see Christian McCaffrey do so many times, it's probably a gone and a touchdown for a huge explosive. And we don't worry about this conversation, but he's not making those right now. So I don't know if it's his frame and the fluidity of everything that is keeping him from having some of the precision in the run game, or is it just not enough time on task? He did get here right at the end of the preseason. There's been a lot of, he's not getting the bulk of the reps during the game plan prep. So is it something that as they work through this, he will get better? That we'll see. If it trends in the right direction that way, I feel good about it. If it continues the way it has been, I think they're going to be trying to get more of, let's get him moving about 5 yards out, and then he can round his cuts and head downhill more that way, which then it's going to be a little bit of a workaround. So I don't know. I'm still reserving judgment.
I talked to Ji'Ayir Brown last Friday, and I was asking him about, he's being utilized as kind of a hybrid player at this point. When they go to the big nickel, he's that third safety, and he's basically in the box like a linebacker. And he said he really enjoys it because he's got a major speed advantage in this alignment. What do you think of the Niners' use of the big nickel? And Ji'Ayir only played, I think, like 8 snaps or something like that against was it New Orleans? I believe he might have played more this week. But what's your thoughts on Ji'Ayir Brown as a player, and what do you think of their new usage of him?
Ji'Ayir Brown, so I was fairly critical of him last year. I think he struggles kind of bringing that run support from deep and fitting in lanes. He does struggle in space in those areas. That was pretty evident last year. Now, he was also, because defensive end issues, was asked to play in more space, or not asked to, but had to play in more space because we couldn't set a good edge. But I think this fits him as a role much better. Where they're bringing him in is against 2 tight end sets. So they're using him as a matchup against tight ends, which I think is a really good fit for what he does. Upton Stout is not a great matchup against tight ends. I love Upton Stout as a player. I think he's an ascending and going to be a really good player in this team. He doesn't have the wingspan and the frame right now, as far as, with his build. He may have to put on more weight and some strength to deal with tight ends. So they're bringing Ji'Ayir Brown, who has a longer wingspan, who is a little bit taller, is a little bit stouter, to be able to take them on in the run game, to be able to then cover them in the pass game. And this works really well for what Ji'Ayir Brown. I will say, I highlighted him on, I haven't been able to put it out yet, but my breakdown video this week, he absolutely set an edge on a tight end on a run play against the Cardinals last week as a 1 yard gain, I think. And he long armed the tight end, set the edge, forced the run back inside, made the tackle even still. It was a really great play by Ji'Ayir Brown. So this is a role that fits him really well.
He seems to be, very, very physical, but, like he's plenty as a hitter. I mean, if he was on the Bruce Feldman freaks list, this guy benches 365. He power cleans 400 pounds. I mean, he squats the entire rack. I mean, this is a very strong player. But as far as coverage, what do you think of Brown as a coverage player?
You have to be intentional how you use him. I'll say that gently. There are certain areas his hips are a little stiff in pass coverage. He is a freak athlete. He does sometimes overcommit on routes, and then it has a hard time recovering. That's where Upton Stout is so good. Upton Stout's hips are so fluid. When I watched Upton Stout's tape against Alabama last year, that was the very first thing that stood out. The first rep that I saw him in the slot, I watched him cover a guy on an in-breaking route. The way he flipped his hips and pursued was so buttery smooth. I went, this kid is going to be a great slot player. Ji'Ayir Brown is not that, and he has struggled in moments like that. So if you can give him assignments where he's not asked to do that very often, that will fit where he is. So that's how I feel about him in coverage. If he's used intentionally, then he can be very good. If he's having to then play in roles that he's not as good at, you're going to see struggle, and it can be a little scary.
Johnny Dell's with us on Niners Nightly on this Friday night. Hope you guys are enjoying some of this kind of inside football. Now, here's a play that you broke down that I really enjoyed as well. We're going to play this one. It's about a minute long. It says, since we need something positive, nice in-between series adjustment by Kyle and his staff. Listen to Johnny's breakdown here. This is pretty good stuff here.
So I know we're all trying to work through the Bosa news. It's not great, but I guess there's something positive we can look at from the offense as we kind of process through that. This is a really nice in-between series adjustment. 49ers in 12 personnel, so Jake Tonjes is down at the bottom. You got this Twins bunch up here with Luke Farrell, and the Cardinals are in base. You're going to have that three down, 2 outside linebackers. And we're first going to bring Tonjes in motion, and then you're going to see Luke Farrell come in motion. Okay, so pay attention to that. And you're going to see they shift over, and then you're going to see Budda Baker is going to come down and blitz on this, and Wilson's going to attack it really hard. We're going to run a little toss zone out here. So see this. Here comes Budda. He comes to blow up these blocks. Here comes Wilson coming shooting through the gap, and they end up getting McCaffrey for a loss on the play. We'll see it from the end zone here. You see Budda is kind of wandering down there. He'll come back in the frame. Here's Wilson. When we bring the second motion in, they shift over, and then they clog this whole thing up. Okay, so next series we come out. Notice we're going to be in the same personnel, same formation. Here's Tonjes. Here's Farrell. So first thing you're going to see, Tonjes goes in motion. Now here comes Farrell in motion. Same thing. Okay, now Budda Baker's here. He sees this motion. He's going to immediately look to blitz off the right side. Well, now we're coming with an inside zone to the left side. And you're going to see then McCaffrey. There's also Wilson. He ends up wanting to attack. He does hold up a little bit, but he holds up enough to where Jake Brendle's able to get up on him. And you see a hole breakthrough off the left side. Nice job of marrying these two run plays together with the pre-snap looks to take advantage of how they over-adjusted from the first attempt at this. That's a really nice in-between series adjustment. Some of the things that they see on those tablets and are able to get a nice gain out of it.
I like that. Nice little, they basically identified the hole and then ran away from it. And then all the action was going towards the offensive right side. And do you think that was that design cut back, or was that just run to daylight by CMC?
No, that's a design cutback. That's our counter inside zone. So the way it looks like with the way that the handoff goes, or really the toss kind of there goes, that it's supposed to go off the right side. That's by design. The read is from the backside or left side of Jake Brendel out. So it's read inside out on that. I would pull it up on the play art, but I can't remember exactly which one it was, which page is on there. So I don't want to sit here and sift through it for a little while, but it's one, it's very similar to the play that they run called counter sift, where it's the same idea is you're going to hand it off to the right side A gap, and then the read is the left side A gap outside. And it was right there. The left side A gap was right there. It was exactly what they were looking for.
Two last points before we finish up here. One is the Niners signed in the offseason Jason Pinnock, and Pinnock has been starting at free safety. He's a very cerebral player. He was a corner at Pittsburgh, and then he jumped into the NFL, and he was kind of a slowish corner. So they were like, okay, but he had good size, and they tried him inside. Then he went to the New York Giants, and he hooked up with Wink Martindale. And I talked to Pinnock about it at his locker a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, yeah, Wink really opened up my entire world because he showed me I could make an impact as a blitzer, and he kind of showed me how. And then Robert Saleh brought him to San Francisco to do a lot of that stuff at the line of scrimmage that that he did in New York. But we haven't seen it necessarily yet. What do you anticipate we may see from Pinnock? How are they utilizing their two safeties? They've got Siegel, who's got 4.37 speed, and obviously they were waiting on Malik Mustafa. Brown's playing a little bit in this hybrid look. Saran Neal's been hurt a little bit, but he's also kind of this year's version of the special teamer safety, and like George was. What do you think? I mean, or George Odom. What do you think of Pinnock, and do you think we may see Saleh utilize him in some line of scrimmage pressure packages? Some blitz looks, because he seemed like that was the strength of his game when he played for the Giants.
I think they are coming. I think that it's as offenses start to see what they've installed and got going here, that I think they're holding some things in their back pocket as counters that they haven't had to use yet, but I think they are there based upon what he can do. The things that I really like about Jason Pinnock and how they're using him, and this is kind of how they're using him and Siegel a little bit different ways. Both of them are very good at run support, rally, and tackle. So they like that about both guys. They're both play very physical. They kind of punch above their weight. Jason Pinnock is being used more if we want a deep safety role, because he's got really good sideline to sideline speed. He's not great in man coverage, and that was one thing we saw at the Jets early on. They don't like him being out having to do man coverage. That's not a strength of his. When we go man, Pinnock is usually the deep safety. Siegel is the guy covering tight ends. And we can remember that back to the Saints hit a touchdown against Siegel. That was a great throw and a great catch. That was not on Siegel. Siegel played that call as well as you can play it. But that's just an example of that. We've been putting Siegel on tight ends because Siegel, if you go back to his college tape, he played safety about 75% of the time and slot about 25% of the time. I watched 3 of his games there in college, and I saw that he was kind of the bizarro Upton Stout. Upton Stout was playing 75% of his snaps at the slot, 25% at safety. So these are similar players, but you're seeing that kind of shift in their roles here with the 49ers, that they mirror what they had in college. Jason Pinnock, when we ask him to be in man coverage, it's going to be on a back and it's going to be off of a blitz. So he is a very one-track man coverage guy. You're not asking him to cover a guy in space to have two-way goes. It's going to be, we're going to blitz off this side and you rally to the running back in the flat. That is your job. And he had a great tackle on I think it was Connor, or it was the other running back. I can't remember who was in at that time, but we blitzed.
It might have been
Benson. And yeah, it was 33. I forget a lot of names sometimes. I remember numbers because that's what I see on the film. But he rallied. He was in man coverage on him, and he made that tackle. When you ask him to do that stuff, man, he can do it. He has that one track closing speed. It's great. And so I think right now, again, this comes back to when you have a defense coordinator who understands their players and understands where to put them. It's not that sometimes we look at it that he's built this system around the players. It's not as much that. It's understanding, where do I put my players within my system so that they can operate the roles of these really well. And that's why we see certain player types tend to repeat themselves. Upton Stout is very much that Jimmy Ward role, that guy who is more of a slot, but can be a bit of a safety and bring that portion, that kind of piece to it. Same with Diamador Lenore. Micah Williams, a long, rangy, good base down defensive end against the run, and that can also run inside, pass rush inside. That's an Eric Armstead. It's a role that we have in the defense that Eric Armstead could fill, and now Micah Williams fills. It's not that we're trying to make Micah Williams Eric Armstead. They're both playing the same role within this defense. And so Saleh has a really good eye for understanding who can fit the roles of their defense. And it looks like looks like when we start seeing it, he's putting his players in a good position to succeed. It's more he's put players who can do what he wants them to do really well. And that's what's been a real strength of Saleh and this defense. And so that's a little bit of a long answer for Pinnock.
No, it's good stuff. One last question for you. Special teams, they went from, Hightower to Schneider, from Schneider to Boyer. Have you seen any real fundamental changes from Brant Boyer from what you've seen in previous years?
Yeah, we're keeping our starting defense out there against punts a lot. And I don't mean that in like any sort of down talking way. It's just more you see somebody who's prepared for we're not going to let the other teams get one on us. So I think I put a still on my X. I took a picture of it because I was watching through the special teams, and the Saints were punting, and we had Bosa, Fred Warner, D Winters. It was a base defense look against a punt formation. And we saw that again against the Cardinals. They did it again. I think they did it twice. They kept the starting defense out there, and then you just have your punt returner deep. They're not going to let, this is a proactive special teams is what I'm seeing. They're not waiting to get hit and then react. They're saying, you are not going to get this on us. We are dictating the terms of engagement on special teams. That is what looks different. And I think that comes across when you hear Brant Boyer talk, and the special teams guys talk about it. He's an aggressive coach. They're like, we are now going on the attack. You see that in their game plans. This is not we're just going to try and not lose the game, which has been the approach under Kyle Shanahan. This is, we are going to be proactive to make sure that you cannot do what you want to do. And we're going to take it away and make you just operate to where you are trying to make special teams not lose you the game.
Interesting. We'll finish with this. The Niners and take on Jacksonville this week. Give me a thought on the Jags. Is there something that you will be looking for on either side of the ball in this matchup with Jacksonville? Jacksonville rolls in. They're 2-1. They're running the ball exceptionally well with Etienne and Bashul Tutin. They have kind of a makeshift offensive line, and Lawrence is hardly a superstar at this point. But what do you see with Jacksonville? Give us a quick thought on the Jags.
I think they're doing a great job of marrying their rushing attack and their passing attack. So they are number 5 in overall rushing efficiency, and they're number 2 in pressure rate allowed. That tells you that they are utilizing that run game to keep defensive lines off base so that they can't just pin their ears back and rush the passer. Because their pressure rate isn't just because their offensive line is just being such stellar pass blockers, or that Trevor Lawrence is getting the ball out of his hands really quickly. That means they're marrying those two game plans together really well. And that's what Liam Cohen did with the Buccaneers before. He had a very strong marriage of their rushing scheme to their passing scheme. So that's going to be interesting. I think the biggest thing I'm going to be looking for is what kind of respect will Demarcus Robinson draw? As I was talking about with the MVS and Sky Moore, that we desperately need another person with some speed who can win on some routes outside to really open up this offense. I think you're going to see an offensive explosion if you can get that. Is Demarcus Robinson going to be that? I think everything we were seeing before the season was looking towards that he can bring that. Can he get out there with being off the field for 3 weeks? Can he stay on the field, not get a ticky-tack injury or something that then puts everybody back another 3 weeks? That's what I'm going to be looking for, is what does Demarcus Robinson bring to help that? And then for the offensive side for Jacksonville, can we, without Bosa, still hold them to under 3 yards of rush? That's going to be really important, because you have to clamp down on this run game to then be able to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence. If you can get pressure on Trevor Lawrence, their passing efficiency is going to nosedive.
Dude, I've enjoyed this hour thoroughly. I mean, absolutely. This has been great stuff. At Johnny Dells on X. Johnny, tell people once again, highlight your YouTube channel. Tell people where they can find this, and hopefully, we can get you back. I know Johnny Dells Football Academy, 26,000 plus on YouTube, but I'd love to have you on as a regular on the on Niners Nightly here and break things down throughout the year, man. I think you're really, really good.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity and sharing your audience with me. And they can just find me at Johnny Dells on Twitter or Johnny Dells Football Academy on YouTube.
Awesome stuff. That is our Friday night edition of Niners Nightly. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I thought Johnny's breakdown was spectacular. He will definitely be back with us. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Have a great night and tune in tomorrow. Because we will have our 49er forecast show at 10 a.m. On Saturday. We'll do a full breakdown of what to expect going into the Jacksonville game. Can the Niners run their record to 4-0? Can they go to 1-0 without Nick Bosa? We will find out on Sunday. But that does it for this hour. Thanks for tuning in to Niners Nightly on these sports.